Hi, everyone. Welcome to Dreamin' Wild, our Chautauqua movie for the night. This movie is based on a true story in terms of events that unfolded in this family, and it's a story about two brothers, Donnie and Joe Emerson, who basically live a pretty secluded farm life in upstate, it's state of Washington, up in the Pacific Northwest. And they have a beautiful family with the brothers, their sisters, the mother and the father, and they grow up on a big 1,700-acre farm in a kind of idyllic farm life where they don't have television, they don't have internet, they don't have even radio until their father buys the sons who are out there on the tractor, plowing the fields and so forth. He puts a radio at some point in the tractor, and they're exposed to music. And of course, they love to be out there hearing the music, but it's a very idyllic world because they're not really so much in the ways of the world and society of the big cities. So that's our backdrop, and I think this is just one of the best healing movies I've seen recently, where it comes along at a very nice, slow pace, and slowly we start to see some of the unconscious fears and doubts coming up, the unconscious darkness, the unconscious shame, things that are just assumed to be true, assumed to be real, and then, of course, the mind reacts with the anxiety, the fear, the tension. But that's what I think makes this such a healing movie, is it just has profound transfer of training value because you can see it. It kind of shifts back from, it takes place over the span of like 3 decades. So the initial album that the two brothers come, and Donnie is just 15 when they make this amazing album, and his brother Joe is 17. So they're just teenagers. And their father builds them like a recording studio. They call it a practice room. He calls it a practice room out in the woods, like a big cabin, where they can record. They get drum sets and recording equipment and microphones and everything that's needed to mix, to match, to do all the things to make this great album. And then the album comes out. They produce and print the album. It's a vinyl album, like a 33 album, like we always, back in the old days, the old 33s. And they have some boxes of it. They press and print copies of it, but they really don't get into distribution. And our talk in the Chautauqua today was all about the joy of distribution. That this movie, you can really see they could have really used some inspiration for distribution here, because their album basically is a great album, but it doesn't leave the living room very much, except when mom sells one to the couple down the road, 15 miles away or something. They just don't have distribution. So basically, the album gets produced in 1979, and then decades later, 3 decades later, it is, we'll say, discovered. And it's kind of like some of you have seen in the Movie Watcher's Guide to Enlightenment, what's it called? Finding Sugarman? Searching for Sugarman. Searching for Sugarman. It's very similar to that, where Sugarman's just going along with his construction job in Detroit, and unbeknownst to him, his album is a super hit. He's better known than Elvis in South Africa, even though he's doing his construction job completely unaware of the popularity of the songs. And Sugarman had these great songs, very profound lyrics and very good songs, and these are very catchy and beautiful love songs. But decades later, it's discovered, and then the character that will come into their lives that will say, "Hey, this album is really good." It's interesting that character in this movie is called Chris. We have a lot of movies in the Movie Watcher's Guide. Chris is one letter short of Christ. It's actually Christ without the cross, without the T. And so he's going to come. He played Ira in Ira and Abby. This is him with a little bit longer hair version of coming back into our scene. But it's really good because you start to really see that the title of their album is Dreamin' Wild, and basically when the mind comes to this world is like dreamland. It's linear dreamland, and the pursuit of dreams is encouraged. Maya Angelou, some of you might remember, Martin Luther King had a very famous speech, some of you might have heard, "I had a dream," and people are taught basically that it's a good thing to pursue dreams, but we see in this movie that the pursuit of dreams always comes with the opposite, because the dreams are made up by the ego, all the dreams, that when you pursue some, then it basically is like getting closer to the underbelly of the guilt and shame in the mind that's underneath even the pursuit of dreams. So I think one of the most poetic lines that Jesus says in A Course in Miracles is, "Dream softly of your sinless brother. Dream of his kindnesses instead of the hurts he gave." He's encouraging us to dream softly. He also says, like I mentioned earlier, happy dreams come true, not because they're dreams, but because they're happy. So the happiness is the keynote. You have to find the happiness in your mind to have happy dreams. And he says those are the happy dreams of non-judgment. Non-judgment would mean you don't judge any of the dreams as positive or negative, as better or worse. There aren't dreams more worth pursuing than others. For many people, that's a pretty big stretch, because they'll say, "Well, David, there is a difference between happy ending dreams that I like in my rom-coms, my romantic comedies, and nightmares. There's a big difference between happy outcomes in romantic comedies and nightmares." And Jesus is telling us that what you call your positive dreams are shadows, and your nightmares are dark shadows. And all of your time is spent in dreaming. So the problem is judging the dreams, and even categorizing and breaking them up into the good dreams and the bad dreams is still part of the ego's device to keep itself hidden, to hide in the unconscious mind, and hope that the sleeping mind will just pursue the dreams that it judges good dreams and avoid the dreams that it calls bad dreams. So it's very good, because these two boys, teenagers, Donnie and Joe, 15 and 17, for them, they're having so much fun making the music. And Donnie, the younger son, is kind of like a musical genius. So he's the one that can write the songs, spend all night mixing them, producing them. His brother Joe is very simple, but he's the drummer, like Pete. He's going to show up there and he's going to drum, and he's going to add to the band. But basically, unlike Rise, it's only a two-person band, two brothers in the woods of Washington and collaborating to make this great music. And the problem comes in, I've talked to so many singer-songwriters in my life, and I remember my friend Donna Marie Carey. She was like a conduit for Jesus, and she could play the guitar, and she had an amazing voice and everything. And she tried to sing and play the guitar for a living, and she even found herself singing at bars and all kinds of places and everything. But it was hard. She said it was really hard to try to make a living at singing. And then when she really kind of let go of the whole thing of singing and music and just said, "Here, Jesus, I'm giving it back to you. You use it for your purposes," then the healing started to happen. And I think that's always the key is that we can't claim ownership of skills, abilities, no matter how developed they become around art, music, and many other literature, speaking, whatever. Because in the end, it's the identification with the body or the person or the doer that produces all this guilt and shame. And then it's judgments of comparison, of not being good enough, of being great in the ego's judgment, which is delusions of grandiosity. I think Jesus calls it in the Course, delusions of grandiosity. And he talks more about grandeur is the spirit you that was created by God. So Jesus will contrast grandeur versus grandiosity. Grandiosity is a term that most people think of as pride run amok. And grandeur, in the true sense, is the spirit. So in this movie, it's just showing us that beneath the family self-concept and beneath the concept of being a person in the world and being a dream figure and being even in a family, secluded, kind of pretty secluded farm family that lives out in a 1,700-acre farm, there is the dark unconscious thoughts that will have to come up. And we see that with Donnie, there's some kind of anxiety that he seems to have. Looks like we've got lights flashing or something. I don't know what that is. That's the power. Oh, that's the Mexican power. Okay. But underneath Donnie's insecurities and tensions and conflict are these unconscious thoughts and beliefs, false identity that have to come up. And so we're going to get to see a 15-year-old Donnie and a 17-year-old Joe, and then we'll see them when they're in their 40s. And Donnie will end up being married and have a family, children, and having a wife, Nancy, that he travels with and does some gigs with and sings with. But he kind of has pursued his dream, music dream somewhat, but there's still a lot of unconscious things that need to be coming up for healing. So, there comes the fireworks off. Jesus is saying, sit back and enjoy this movie. It's a really good healing movie. We haven't even started, the fireworks are going off here. So, Donnie hears about it from his brother. He's so busy, but he does make time to go out there. And then the song, the first song we're really hearing is Stranger in a Strange Land. It's like a prophetic song for the whole world that Jesus says, you feel like a stranger here. He said, you feel like an alien from somewhere unknown. You feel like a stranger in a strange land. And it's interesting with this feeling of stranger in a strange land that then all that seems to be obvious in perception is that there's a bunch of options about how your life in the world can turn out. People say, well, you got to make something of yourself. You got to. He told his son, the son's like, I don't want to sleep. I don't like the nightmares. And he said, you got to dream. You got to dream. And it seems to be in this dreamland world of linear time, you have to dream, and it seems that there's many options and many routes, many outcomes and possibilities for that. And yet, somewhere all unknown, Jesus says, you feel like a stranger here. You have this uncomfortable feeling, this pit in your stomach, this thing in your heart, where you just don't get it. You don't understand this world. You don't feel at home in this world, and this is a world of dreams and dreamland, and it seems like you have to pick your dreams, and you have to pick and choose among dreams to make something of yourself. And even with that, Jesus says, yes, you came without a self, and you made one up as you go along. This is the purpose of the world and dreams. To come without a self and make one as you go along. To invent yourself. This is a world of inventions. I invent. I have invented the world I see, is a workbook lesson. So, and the thing about the inventions is you can't really make heads or tails of it. Am I doing okay? Am I doing good? Jesus says you can't judge your advances from your retreats. So you can't really, in a dream state like this, you can't really judge success and failure, because it's such a deep sense of alienation and a sense of like, this isn't right. Something's not right about this place. Things never come out completely right and consistently right because it's fictitious. It's a substitute reality. It's not home. It's not reality. So Stranger in a Strange Land is the perfect song as he's driving out in his minivan, his minivan, he's driving out to explore what is this thing that's going on, this guy who called, talked to my father, now my brother hears about it. He comes out, okay, what is this all about? And he's kind of a little bit surprised to hear about the album, what it's doing. But this, I think this kind of sets up the whole movie is that when we come to a dreamland and we come to a dream world, it seems like the underlying goal in dreamland is to fulfill your dreams. But it seems like everyone who seems to fulfill their dreams, even beyond their wildest expectations, gets hit with guilt and fear and gets completely lassoed with death. And I was just thinking of a movie I saw in the last couple years, a movie about Elvis. Elvis comes out, he's from Tennessee, he's handsome, he's got a voice like people haven't heard, and then he starts swiveling his hips. And I'm telling you, people are screaming over in the United States like they were screaming when the Beatles first came out, the Fab Four. They were like screaming hysterically. So, and then the Colonel Parker sees him and thinks, oh, I could make a lot of money off of this kid. And then it kind of goes on, and it goes on into drug addiction, obesity, loneliness, isolation. Unfamiliar? Marilyn Monroe, little girl, grows up out in Hollywood, dreams of being a movie star. Oh, she goes beyond a movie star. She becomes like an icon of sex appeal, with the President of the United States lusting after her, with married to some of the most famous men, Joe DiMaggio, Arthur Miller, playwright, and then, you know, when I show Marilyn Monroe, we show where it goes, the drugs, the suicidal thoughts, the betrayal feelings with the Kennedy brothers. You know, I've done a couple different movies. I've also shown the movie Whitney. Remember Whitney Houston? Grows up, Christian family, singing in church, singing for the Lord, can't stop singing for the Lord, and oh Lord, does she have a voice. If Marilyn had a body, if Elvis had a body and a voice, look at Whitney. Oh, look at that voice. And then if you follow the story along, what happens? The dreams never get fulfilled. As I was sharing earlier, this is a place that Jesus tells us in Lesson 300, all those who come here are subjected to suffering and death. That's like status quo. Choose dreamland, choose suffering and death, until you choose fulfillment. But fulfillment of dreams is not what the ego makes it out. The ego is saying, oh, here, my pretty, come here and try this dream. Try the Elvis dream. Ooh, look, ooh, 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 ooh. Try the Marilyn Monroe. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Whitney. Ooh, 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 ooh. I will always love you. Yeah, yeah. Oh, you have to start to peel back the curtain a little bit and go, maybe this should teach me something. Maybe dreamland isn't what I thought it was. And maybe the fulfillment of dreams sounds good, but maybe the fulfillment of dreams is forgiveness, is their release, is their non-judgment of seeing the falsity of them and seeing, like the Bible said, hold no graven images before the Lord thy God. What if the dreams are the graven images that we were told in the Bible not to hold before the Lord thy God? What if the I am presence, spirit, is what it's all really about, what it's always been about, what it will forever be about? It's about God, and it's about Christ, and it's about identity. And so, for me, as I'm watching this movie now for the second time, I'm paying attention and hearing, I'm hearing that song. I didn't hear the lyrics the first time I watched the movie to that song, Stranger in a Strange Land. But that's like a prophecy for all of us, to start to realize that you can't look for salvation in the dreams. You have to look within yourself to the one who transcended the dreams, and give thanks for that you can accept that. As Jesus says in the workbook of the Course, salvation of the world depends on me, not the personality me, but the mind me. Not the mini-me, but the mind me. The mind, if it made them up, it had the power to make them up, must have the power to give them up, to release them, to unmake them. And that's what I feel like, that's such a strong call now. And as we could see, the parents gave the story, distribution, yeah, the mom, she's so sweet. I just sold 3 copies this past week. This is 30 years after the album's been out. You imagine having a great album, you have a great collaboration, you have a great swirl. And it's not so much about the form, obviously, of distribution or selling books or selling albums or whatever, but when Jesus says, ideas increase by being given away, think of that in terms of albums, record albums and books. Ideas increase in strength by being given away. That's what was going on at the book fair. There was a giving away of ideas at the mind level. And you could feel the vibrancy of that. And that's the vibrancy, that's why we share what we share. That's why we have used the internet. That's why we use gatherings and concerts and 6-week mystery school, or Mallorcas and mystery schools, and everything that we've done is just an opportunity to teach what you would learn and strengthen the ideas in mind. And really that's I think a version of teach only love, for that is what you are, is a version of the Bible. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. If you teach only the thoughts of God, and you teach them consistently, then you're teaching yourself. It's your own mind just teaching what it would learn over and over, thoughts of love, then eventually it must result in purity, It must result in my mind holds only what I think with God. It must result in I have no life apart from my source. I am an idea in the mind of God, and that's a fact. And it's better to humbly admit the fact that I am an idea in the mind of God than to go play the pretend game of dream, 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 Sweet dreams made of these, who am I to disagree? Travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Oh, that's it. Everybody's looking for something. Everybody's looking to fulfill a dream. I'm sure Elvis was. I'm sure Whitney was. I'm sure Marilyn was, but they can be examples to us. We can hear the spirit behind them now saying, don't fall for it. I tried it on my own. I tried it to have a will apart from God. I tried to make an identity in dreams that would satisfy me, and it didn't. Don't make the same mistake. Everyone who comes to suffer and die. But there is an alternative. I remember when I was in graduate school, first in undergrad, I remember talking to my colleagues I think I was in urban planning, and everybody was talking about what they were going to do and what their career goals and everything. And I said something like, it doesn't sound appealing. And they said, what do you mean? And I said, well, I don't know, nothing in the future really appeals to me. And they said, what do you mean? What are you talking about? That's terrible. What do you mean? The future doesn't sound appealing. And I said, I don't know. And they said, you need a plan. You need to have something in the future to focus on. And I said, what? And they said, I don't know. Get a partner, get a mortgage, get a life. And I said, what is a life? And then they described what they believed was a life, but the life was more dreams. And something in me was like, I said, and it still doesn't sound appealing. And they said, what do you mean? I said, grow old, get sick and die? That actually doesn't sound appealing. And they were like, but everybody has to do that, And I said, I don't know. For example, I don't think Jesus was really teaching that. I don't think that's what he was teaching. I don't think that's where he was coming from. And they would say, oh, just come on, get a mortgage, get in debt. They don't get in debt. Even that didn't sound really appealing. In debt. That's the sound of it. In debt. Go in debt. I said, no, I don't. And then what? Grow old, get sick, and die. Oh, that's really appealing. Get in debt, grow old, get sick, and maybe you pay off your mortgage. Yeah, and then grow old, get sick, and die. It did not sound appealing. So I think we have to start. This movie is so good for starting to see that that we are dreaming. We have to acknowledge that, but we do seem to have a choice of the purpose that we give to the dream. And if we have a choice of that, and we can choose to see it differently and not judge it, and see it with different eyes, with a different perspective, then why wouldn't we want to devote every second to that purpose, if that is an alternative? If there really is a real alternative, why wouldn't you give your heart to jump out of bed in the morning and say, here I am, Lord, have your way with me. Have your way with me. I don't care what it is. I'm not going to judge the form. Today I will judge nothing that occurs. Just let me shine my light. I want nothing more than to shine. And I think you can start to see it on the characters' faces. We see the older Donnie and we see the younger Donnie. And the older Donnie, he's married to Nancy, he's got the kids, he's frustrated that the studio that he's got, he's still in the music business, but it's not really making money, and it looks like he and Nancy and two or three of his friends were singing at a wedding. But you can see there's a heaviness of trying to make a living. There's a heaviness to try to survive in dreamland. There's a heaviness to try to make it through the day, because there's like haunting memories of dreams unfulfilled. Memories where we tried something and we believe we failed and didn't succeed, and those memories are still there. And there's also a doubt that's raised with that. If I failed before, what if I fail again? What if I don't make it? Whatever that would mean. These are kind of heavy ideas that the mind is caught up in chains with. And I can see that when I watch this movie, I see that you can feel the love coming through the family. I mean, look at mom and dad when this guy Matt shows up and then it says, hey, there's a buzz and you've been discovered and all this and that. Mom and dad are sitting there like, just the biggest smiles on their faces, like, God is good. They're just like looking, here, almost like a happy surprise, like after 30 years, over 3 decades, and they're just smiling, going, look at this. And they're just happy. But I'm sure they were happy before the guy walked in even, because true love, it has a happiness that it's intrinsic. It doesn't come from outcomes. But they still weren't going to hold back. They were really beaming and smiling there, like they were so happy and grateful, probably just for the happiness of wishing their children well, and seeing anything that they can as a symbol of that happiness and wellness, out of just pure gratitude. Okay, here we go. It's going to slowly roll on here as we go through this one. So, it's like we're learning from the Course. I've given everything I see all the meaning it has for me, that every circumstance, every situation really has no meaning, intrinsic meaning, because there is no situation that exists in and of itself apart from the whole. That all we're doing is perceiving the world. And it's totally quantum, it's totally connected, but it's just what we interpret in the situations is the meaning that we give to them. And it's all based on the past. And Jesus is just saying, give it up. You never knew what any circumstance ever meant in this world. Like the first lesson of the Course, nothing I see means anything. Second lesson, I've given everything I see all the meaning it has for me. This is a literal thing. This is not symbolic. This is a literal thing. So you look at here and we see Joe and we see Matt and we see Donnie coming out to the practice place, the place that the dad built so that they could go out there. And you can see it in Joe's eyes. Joe's like saying, yeah, it's like a church. And we already saw he still lives on or near the farm in his own little house, and you saw that little chapel that he goes and visits to pray and light candles. And then I don't know if you saw in his house when he went back to his house, but there was the saints on the walls. Here's Joe, and he's deeply spiritual, religious, and he's saying, he's coming back to the practice place for the first time, and he's telling Matt, yeah, it's like coming to church. Because that's what, for him, the connectedness of jamming together, of playing together, of making music together, he equates with church. He equates with the spiritual, with the divine. Isn't that beautiful? Because everything we experience through the filter of our mind. And that's beautiful for a symbol. And then Matt's coming and going, so this is the place. Ooh, it seems special, and because he's caught up in the whole album and the discovery of the album and this lost album that now is coming out, and that's his function in life, is to bring things out that have been lost or passed by. And then if you look at Donnie's face, though, you can see there's a lot of memories. There's a lot of mixed memories. And that's the conflict that we experience in life, in relationships, in community, in every situation that we experience. We're simply experiencing our mind, what our mind is thinking and believing. That's why Jesus says in the workbook, everything I think and say and do teaches all the universe. It's like our mind is broadcasting a world down to the minute detail of everything we perceive. It's all there by our own election. It's all there by seeming choice among preferences and illusions. Not a real choice, but it's all there by an election. That's why there are no victims. There is no abuse. How can there be abuse if we're just perceiving what we believe, and we're getting exactly what we're asking for? He's like telling us, what you believe is what you perceive. Every thought you hold that God didn't create, you see witness to. My thoughts are images I have made. So it's just like the mind stuck into believing something that's not real and true, and then when we move towards the divine, we start to see things as holy. We start to feel things as holy, like it looks like Joe is really feeling the holiness of the situation as he's going back in there, making a joke about the mouse in the control room. He's there. And I think more than ever, it's like, for Joe, I think he's just living a very simple, prayerful life, and he's showing us. The cats are having fun here. Their own game of play. But Joe is really showing us that I think he's seeing what's unfolding as a golden opportunity. He's probably thinking, I get to be connected in that same energy with my brother again. My brother went off, got married, has children's living closer to the city. He's still there on the farm with his simple life, going to his little chapel and praying, and he's probably thinking, wow, what an opportunity. And when we look at the world through that perception of seeing everything every day as opportunities to connect, to extend. We had a little thing here. It was just a bunch of a swirl of energy tonight with cats and people and food and Kirsten positioning herself over by the door so she could hug everybody, and Lisa doing her speed dating thing. Ho, 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 because it was a big swirl. But really, you have to see the world as an opportunity to connect and to extend and to be in the love. And Joe is, I think he's doing that now. He's probably thinking like, thank you for this opportunity. Whatever, with this album, you're bringing my brother back into my life. You're stirring up all these great memories of, he just said, this place is like church. And now it's coming back to him as more opportunities for church. So he's excited. And I think it's so cool to think that that's just our choice in our mind. We can choose to have that perspective on everything and everyone, that this is church, this is holiness, this is expansiveness time, this is opportunity to remember God's will for me time, this is the miracle. This moment is your miracle. And I can feel it with Joe here. He's kind of like in that mindset. This moment is my miracle. Like, here, I can't believe I'm back in the woods and with my brother and with this guy Matt, and oh my gosh, pinch me. Is this really happening? Kind of wonderful thing. And that's just a beautiful the way they're showing little bits and pieces of the little chapel and then the picture on the wall in Joe's house and everything, you can see, and then him praying. He's praying for connection. He's praying for connection with his brothers, his sisters, his family, and Donnie. He's not been seeing Donnie that much, and this is like a healing moment, and he's like excited about it. Yeah. Man of faith, there's like the Jesus talk. Focus your mind, work hard at it, you have a gift, and I'm counting on you to use your gift. And why don't you write your own songs? It's fun to sing others, but why don't you, it's like he's just calling them to pull forth with their gift, their creative gift, and let it come out. So it's really beautiful, and you can see that it's like you have to go fully into it. It's enough when you start off and you collaborate, and all this amazing music comes through, and you feel this like it's a church, like it's reverent and it's everything beautiful. And then, he was talking to one of them, I don't know if it's maybe Matt or whatever. We go through all that, and then we made the album, and then they didn't like it. And it's interesting if you get caught into an assumption that somebody doesn't like something, but really it's not for us to judge whether people like it or not, it's to give it away. We have to distribute, we have to give it away. We have to take that extra step. We can't, what did they say in the Bible, don't hide your light under a bushel. And even the things we talk about, like with marketing and distribution and everything, you have to remember that it's not really marketing as the world sees marketing, or distribution as the world sees it. It's just following your joy and letting the Spirit do it through you. Because I think that can be a hindrance. I remember when Francis and I were over in Europe, and we were renting a center over there, started a center in Spain, and then we had a couple people that came. One of them was a man named Samuel Adams, and he took a walk with me one day, and I said, I hear you got all kinds of marketing skills, internet skills, SEO skills. He said, yeah, I'm through with all that. I said, well, you're through with it? And he said, well, marketing is totally ego. And if you believe that, that's what it will be for you. If that's the extent of your opening, if you just think of it, marketing as an egoic enterprise of buying and selling and supply and demand and fulfilling demands and orders and this, but if you start to see that everything that the ego made in the world can be used by the Spirit for the extension of true ideas. And remember, he said ideas are strengthened by being given away. So underneath evangelism, that's, if you bring it all the way back to the core idea, it's that ideas are strengthened by being given away. And actually that's how Christ was created. Christ is an idea in the mind of God that was extended and given away. And so everything that involves extension of true ideas is in alignment with the original and really the only creation that there is spiritual light extending. In heaven, that's all there is. There aren't bodies. There's no supply and demand. There's no networking. There's no making business cards in heaven. There's none of that. But within the realm of time and space, this is the opportunity to shine the light with whatever's given. And whatever's given will flow easily and freely. It won't seem like a job. It won't seem like work. It never seems like work. Here comes Isa, finding a nice lap to sleep on now. But to me, that's like you have this beautiful heart song. What was the penguin movie? You have to sing your heart song? Happy Feet, yeah. Everyone's got a heart song that has to come out. And the heart song is the extending. And it doesn't really matter the form, it's just whatever's given, And we can see there, the boxes piling up in the basement and the things like that. You can see all the love and care that went into the album, all the collaborations, the joy, and then the making of the album and pressing it, and then there it sat, a few here, a few there. But, and it looks like Donnie persisted in some of his music aspirations, but with a bit of disappointment. And whenever we don't follow our heart and get into the fullness of giving, the fullness of give it all away, that's the first lesson of the Holy Spirit. I just read that on the live today. To have, give, all to all. He said this is probably the most difficult of the 3 lessons, and it's the only one that involves you like playing your part. Like you're gonna have to give this. You're gonna have to give this to get over the first lesson and make it to number 2 and 3. This one does involve you. I mean, to have, give all to all, that goes against everything we've ever learned in this world. Save for a rainy day, and don't give too much. You'll regret it in the future. You won't have anything. If you give too much, you won't have anything left for yourself. All the things we've heard our entire life are challenged in the first lesson of the Holy Spirit. To have, give all to all. I like that part too, because there was one part in the special holy relationship sections, 15 to 24, where Jesus is saying, under the Holy Spirit's teaching, every relationship is a total commitment. Every relationship is a total commitment, and yet they do not conflict with each other in any way. That sounds to me like to have, give all to all. Under the Holy Spirit's teaching, every relationship is a total commitment. That, we weren't taught that either. We were taught hierarchies of commitment. We were taught that you got mom and dad, and you might have children and family, and then you have your mailman, your post deliverer, and your auto mechanic, and your minister, and your neighbors, and this, and then put them in a nice hierarchy of arrangements with the most important ones and the least important ones. I remember when I made scrapbooks when I was in school young, they would have little slots for photographs. Fill it in your best friend, and your second best friend, your third best friend. And I thought, now I look back and I go, what programming? What the hell? Trying to make a hierarchy of friends and put photos in the little scrapbook. They're just trying to, but that's just all reflections of the ego belief system. Nowadays, they call it besties, right? I can't to keep up with the language. Besties, is that right? Is it bestie? Besties. Still the same old thing, like little David at 6 years old had to face it. Now it's besties. But it's to have, give all to all, and that every relationship under the Holy Spirit's teaching is a total commitment, and yet they do not conflict with each other in any way. That sounds like what I was talking about earlier, about how only the levels of the Trinity do not conflict. It's only the levels of the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost have, it seems like 3, but it's really 3 in 1, because in heaven there's just 1. It appears as 3. But in the end, it's not like it's a meeting of 3. Its spirit is eternal. It's just one spirit, one life, one mind. So it's beautiful to see it, because I like to watch the characters, because you can really you can see it on their faces. In this movie, Donnie he's at times he lets his happiness out, but at times he's a bit conflicted, almost like he's sitting on a bunch of memories, and this whole album coming out 3 decades later is now his mind, our mind, giving itself permission to unpack some assumptions and beliefs that have been buried down there. And isn't that what everything is? Isn't that what spiritual community is? Isn't that what every day is? Today we had to unpack any unconscious beliefs about rain and fog and feeling like we're living in What did we have? We were in tropical rainforest in Hawaii. These are the kind of days we would have in Hawaii, but we're just not used to it. Raining all day long and heavy cloud cover, and Jason was talking to me saying, we're not producing any energy over there. Not with a day like today. We're spending more than we're taking in. It may change tomorrow, but isn't it fun? We have to wait and see. We just have to wait and see. Zach's been doing solar measurements. It's like, okay, we're going down. Rainy, foggy day and everything. Not very atypical, but everything's only happening for us to unpack our belief system. That's all it's for. It has no other reason. Imagine if it was just like it was today for the next 10 years. Unpack everybody's beliefs about Lake Chapala Chapala Lake area would be like. So it's just everything is for the undoing of false beliefs, and when you start to see it that way, then your mind is on the ready for the Holy Spirit. Okay, let's go for it. Lisa's checking her clock like, oh, how long? So, yeah, he's thinking back to 15 years ago when this particular song, "Don't Go Loving Somebody Else. Don't you know how much I need you?" It's a song about specialness. He hit the specialness root back when he's writing the songs, back when he's 15, and now 3 decades later, it's still the thing that's coming up. It's the root. It's the root of specialness. And this time last time it was like, you gotta keep a steady pace. You gotta keep it up, you gotta keep it steady. And Joe's doing his expression session. I keep getting tripped up with that don't go loving nobody else. Don't pay attention to that. Just keep the steady pace. It's hard for us to keep a steady pace in our mind when we have the root of specialness rearing its head up. Even though it was an old special song. And then 3 decades later, they're trying to practice now to do the concert, and here it comes again, it's tripping them up. And he's basically like saying, we can't do this anymore, we can't play the old songs, we have to play the new songs. But the whole context of the whole album coming and planning to play together and everything was under, play a couple of the songs from the album and then shake hands. And that's part of the business of deal, that's part of the arrangement. So it goes all the way back to his father said, play your own songs and give your gift away and everything, but the only thing that keeps us from giving our gift away, the only thing that ever brings up any discomfort around Jesus or embarrassment. Some people have told me, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed by Jesus still to this day, and the only reason there's embarrassment in the mind around Jesus is specialness, because there's guilt with specialness. It's what made the dreams. It's what made set this whole time and space thing in motion, was specialness. It's like love doesn't make the world go round, it's guilt. Guilt makes the world go around. And here, 3 decades later, they're going back and practicing some of these songs, and he's just having all these flashbacks, like he's staring at his younger self, going, wow, there you are, just trying to make it through the day and find your way. And here he is, all these decades later, the same things that disturbed him and bothered him are still coming up. And that's because guilt and these false beliefs, they perpetuate the belief in the linear dreams. It's in the mind. The world is just a projection of what's believed in. That's why the whole healing is undoing of specialness. You can't hold on to a little specialness and open to the kingdom of heaven. You don't get through the pearly gates. Okay, here we are. Are you ready? Do you have anything with you? I got a little specialness in the pocket here. That's all right, right? I can come in and enter. No. Jesus said, many will come to me and say, Lord, Lord, and I will say, I know you not, depart from me. People don't like that line from the Bible. Lord, Lord, and I know you not, depart from me. All he's saying is, we're the same one. I only know the Christ. God only knows Christ. God only knows love. He's not telling us to depart. We're departing by trying to bring the little sliver of specialness into the kingdom of heaven. That's the problem. We're doing it. We did the departing belief. You know, there's a part in Genesis where basically God tells Adam and Eve, you know, there's one thing you can't do. Just don't eat from the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, it says in the Bible. And then they do, and then they get expelled from the Garden of Paradise and everything. But in the Course of Miracles, Jesus goes back and addresses that part of the Bible. He says about that Genesis part, tree of the knowledge of good and evil, God would never put you in such a position. Oh, it wasn't God that put a tree of duality there and said, don't eat from the tree. It's the mind that believes in the ego that generated the tree of good and evil. And then the whole story about the apple and the fall from grace and everything is like, well, actually God had nothing to do with any of it. Whoa, let's take God off the hook. Atheists unite. That's right. Let's all come together. All you atheists that are like, that damn God put that damn tree in the garden. Everything was good in the garden until that damn tree appeared. And then, don't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God knows nothing of trees of knowledge of good and evil. You know, that's just duality. And God is the God of oneness. So in the end, that's part of the forgiveness, is starting to realize, let's take God off the hook here, because actually God's not to blame. And then actually, ultimately, no one is to blame, because it's the fall from grace is impossible. So that's the good news. That's why we have to extend this in so many ways. This is really good news. That's why when Jeffrey takes this stuff in movies and all these teachings into the prisons, they're just eating it up. Wow, that's a captive audience, you know. They're just like, bring some more books. Okay, movies, Movie Watcher's Guide to Enlightenment, bring her on in here. Now that's rehabilitation. I read a couple of months ago that they're planning on building billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar prisons, high-tech prisons for the future, where they can hold more prisoners and everything like this. That just doesn't seem like the best use of funds. We have a better use of funds, which is shine the light and tell people that you're innocent. You know, what better way of rehabilitating the mind than by extending the message of love and innocence? You know, isn't that what everyone wants to hear anyway, regardless of the form and the circumstances and everything? So, okay, we're cruising here. We're slowly getting into this. That was one of the movies that just carries you through all the way. Sharing.